beforehand.
I changed my mind. I don't want to do it.
What?
What up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. If you haven't seen us, we're Street Fab Performance. Right now we're doing Scat engine swap into a Hyundai Genesis. Obviously right now that is not what I'm doing. I'm building a welding cart we just picked up. You'll see it in about 4 hours when I read all the directions and finally put it together. We got Jake over here. He's finished building the motor mounts right now. And Jake's about to let me stop talking and he's going to tell you all about them.
What's happening, Jake? What you got going on over here?
I'm trying to wrap up these mounts. That's the goal today, to get the weight on the front. We got to get a 5/16 plate for the transmission cross member. If you've ever looked at like Z1 LS swaps, it's pretty much the same design. It's just kind of a C, but with a couple slight angles. So that one's going to be pretty simple. We got a cardboard template up there already, so it's ready to go. We're going to hit McMaster-Carr and get a plate here in the morning so we can continue on. But that's the goal, the weight on the front today. This mount's ready for tack up, and then I'm going to come over here and finish up the side so we can set the final height. I like where this one lives right now and make sure the motor's level, centered up in the bay. So that's what I got going on. There's a lot of other things going on in the shop.
Hold on, before we go there. So in the previous videos, I told you guys we're gonna go with the solid mounts or polyurethane bushing, but Jake was doing his magic and he figured out the way to use the OEM mounts like customer requested.
Well, it's not set up right now, but I got a motor plate up on the top. I know it's thick material, but we're trying to use minimal space, so that's why I'm running with the thick material. I got a nice solid plate up here, but I'm gonna skeletonize it to get the weight down instead of the big cast mount. But I want to utilize the factory mount for customer requests. Solid mounts are great. You know, I'm not going to have as much deflection, won't have to have as much clearance, say, on the cross members, because these have a little bit more flex. But he's looking for, you know, kind of like a factory feel, like this motor's supposed to be in there. So to give him a little bit smoother operation just all around, we're sticking with the factory fluid filled. So that's the plan right here. I got a little space up here, so I got to make a shim. We just got the mill. Got a lot of things going on, get it wired up, but I'm going to make a shim right here, registered on that little pin. That way, you know, you won't be running into that shim twisting around. I thought about putting a shim on the top, but that's the route I'm going. Got another little piece in here that got a nice big bevel. I'll end up hitting it right there, centered in the plate. That's the plan for that side. This side's a little bit different. It's got a little cast pyramid on it, and it's going to have a bolt coming from the outboard side. I don't know how well you guys,
a little light in there.
I don't know how well you guys can see up here, but it's got this little pyramid, and the plan is to use the threaded holes over here on the side. So minimal space here. This side is actually going to go up a little bit, so we're going to have a little bit more room. But building a little hook, something minimal, come down here to the center of the plate, and that should be a wrap for the mounts. And then that way, you know, wants to go yank the motor or change the mounts, they get worn over time. 2 bolts right out. You can order factory mounts, so that's the plan for those.
And then what's going on with the transmission? Yeah, what's going on with the transmission mount?
Transmission mount, we got to support it, or I bring you guys up a little bit more, but like I said, we got a little cardboard template right here. That's pretty much the design. It's going to be 5/16. It'll have a slight break in it here and right here, but this will be flat, so we'll just measure this difference in height, and that'll be how we get our 2 steps for those angles right there. And factory location for the bolts, factory mounts for the original trans. It'll be a nice fit for them, you know, serviceability, looking long run, so you can maintain a car like this if someone wants. So you gotta get a one-off mount, you know, bushing goes bad. That's the plan for the mounts, so they'll be done today.
All right, as Jake and Joey are working, I'm going to show you what else we got going on around the shop. So recently we just got our Certiflat welding fixture table right over here. It's a 3x5 piece. Let me walk around. It just came in a few days ago. Still has to get put back together, but we're pretty excited. I think Jake mostly, because he's going to be using it a lot. But here are all the pieces just all stacked up. So at one point in time, we're gonna have to stop and put that together because we will be using that a lot, and it'll actually help out with motor mounts and all kind of welding that we're gonna have going on. Jake, are you pumped about it?
Yeah, I'm stoked. So it's more like people just get welding tables. A lot of things we're doing is like there's no mounts for these, so something like that, a fixture table, you can make your own little jig where you set it up. So I'm super stoked about that. That way, you know, make two. Just make a fixture, make two. Really pumped about that. It's got a lot of bracing, so it's super rigid. And you know, if you put it together square, it'll hold true. So you can do all kinds of projects. You know, stands, square tubing. It helps a lot when you got a very rigid surface that you can clamp to well and keep everything true while you're welding it up.
All right, another thing we got going on, we just picked up that mill, as you guys already know. And if some of you wondering why there's a panel with a whole bunch of wiring that's all open, we've been wiring this up. So we've been running wires all the way up and around, and here's the mill. So the wiring that we do have is a little, it's not correct gauge, I should say. So we're gonna pick up some thicker gauge wiring because this thing keeps kicking offline, or the three-phase converter that we got keeps kicking offline. So we have to make a trip down to Lowe's or Home Depot and pick up some thicker gauge wiring. And another thing that we've been talking about is this mill that Jake had, so we ended up bringing that over. Apologize for the mess. That's where it got unloaded with all the ratchet straps. But here's the lathe that we got, and it still needs to get moved over down that way and needs to be wired up. So there's a lot of shop stuff that we'll have to catch up on. A little bit of rearrangement, a little bit of wiring, putting the fixture table together so we can keep progressing and not lose as much time doing everything by hand, since now we got all the machinery, or some of the machinery that we need to make things easier.
We don't have all the machines.
Joey ended up finishing up these plates that we spoke about last video. Here they are to fixture the bottom of this radiator core support. So that's all put together. So as soon as Jake is done mocking up his motor mounts, we're gonna mock this up on the car, put the headlights in, and see to make sure this all fits nice. All right, so we're gonna get Jake some room, get his mounts buttoned up, and then we're gonna try that core support, and hopefully Joey's done with that welding cart. All right, guys, so we got our core support on, and it came out actually looking pretty good. As we thought, Joey did a great job getting everything trimmed and drilled up. So for this upper mount that we fabricated, we ended up picking up some countersink bolts. So these bolts gonna sit flush when everything's done, and it's gonna look awesome because you're not gonna see any bumps or any screws sticking out if you'll be using like a button head. And our OEM hoses are actually lining up with the motor, top and bottom, so that's a plus. We don't have to get new hoses or anything like that or make them custom, so that's awesome. That's gonna work out great. The AC lines, we're kind of mocking them up. Some fit, some don't, so but there's gonna be a lot of custom stuff going on with the lines because we want to reroute them, and that's gonna be in the future. And the next thing we're working on right now is mocking up the power steering pump. So we end up removing the tensioner pulley, and we're actually mocking up the bracket where we're going to run this pump. So it's going to sit somewhere in this area, like I mentioned before in the previous video. So that's kind of in work right now. Joey's doing that, and we're going to come back to that later because we're going to have to pick up a nice piece of aluminum so we can space this out correctly and line up with the rest of the pulleys. So we're pretty stoked about the core support. It looks nice. Another thing I want to mention, we end up installing our ABS unit, and we end up moving it to the back by the firewall. So we made a bracket, and it's now nicely tucked away by the firewall, and that's where all the lines are going to be mounted. We're kind of going to run them up and under this little lip, so it's barely noticeable once we start routing all the lines. But we made the bracket for it, and it's nice and solid. It's still sitting on the rubber bushings. So another thing done, making progress. the motor is sitting on its own for the first time. Jake just got done making the motor mount plates, and he did an awesome job. Check it out. We're super stoked about it. Nice thick material. Still needs a little trimming, and we might run a little gussets. We're not sure about it, but this motor mount is all made, bolted down, and here's this side. So for the first time, it is on its own. So today was a pretty productive day, guys. A lot of stuff got accomplished. We're gonna order the material for the transmission mount and get that made, and then measure a drive shaft and get that sent out to be made. But the car's looking pretty good. Everything that we were planning to accomplish today got accomplished, so we're stoked. And it's been a pretty long day, so appreciate you guys watching. Check out some more videos, and we'll see you next time. Take it easy.